Hey guys, and welcome back to Beerfield Fantasy Football. We are continuing our State of the League series today. We have the full crew back in the house. We got Christopher Hopper back on the line in St. Louis.
What is up, guys? I missed you all last week. That was not a plain thing. I was judging a homebrew competition that ran a little bit long at a newer brewery in the central Illinois area. So some show work, promotional work, but I didn't get to talk to everybody, and that was sad.
Well,
Hot BFF with 2 Ps.
Yep, we did have Jordan McNamara on. Big shout out to him, and thanks for him joining us on the show. He did a decent job filling in. Wasn't quite the usual banter we get out of Hopper, but he did bring the analytical knowledge, so kind of a good trade-off for a one-off episode.
Yeah, I heard some of it, and I'm sitting there in the car like, I want to debate, and then I couldn't. So I think Dan saw some of my comments in the YouTube chat.
Yes.
But good job to Jordan, and thank you for filling in.
All right, and then to my right, as always, Dan Thury.
At 30 BFF, half awake.
All right, and hopefully if all you listeners up in the northern central United States, hopefully you got through the massive cold spell. We're back up into somewhat reasonable temperatures for this weekend,
This
though.
fucking state and city, man. Jesus Christ.
Happy February, everybody.
Yeah, I mean, we just went from this area went from negative 50-degree wind chills to 60 degrees.
We haven't hit 60 yet. I think that's either tomorrow or Monday.
We had
Tomorrow.
50
It
degrees
was
today.
relatively nice this morning, the one time I left the house to go get breakfast.
And I'm at Nick Sparts, as always, as well. The show is at Beerfield FF, Twitter, Instagram, and Untapped. Beerfield Fantasy Football is for YouTube and Facebook if you want to follow us there or catch the video version of the podcast. Otherwise, we're wherever you can get podcasts. If you can drop reviews for us, likes, comments on our videos, we appreciate all that. It helps boost the visibility of the show. Reminder, we are year-round, so 1 time a week here up until we get into rookie season. Then it'll be 2 times a week, and then we'll go to 3 as soon as we hit the main part of a redraft season. Do you want to help us out even more? You can DM us at BeerfieldFF or email at beerfieldfantasy@gmail.com, and I can get you more information now. You can support us on Patreon, hook you up with some Beerfield Fantasy merch, or lastly, if you just want to send us beer for us to review on the show, we'll always take donations. Before we get to everything in today's episode, which includes news and continuing the running back roundtable, we're going to go ahead and let you know what is fueling us on today's show. And we finally got a Hopper beer back on the show. We got 6 Mile Bridges Cinnamon Maple Stout. It is another St. Louis special out of the suburbs there in Maryland Heights, Missouri. It's 6 Mile Bridges' first time joining us on the show. And it's an 8% ABV stout with Indonesian cassia bark and Vermont maple syrup. Once again, that's Cinnamon Maple Stout by 6 Mile Bridges. We'll give you a full review of that once we're through the running back threes.
News.
All right, we hinted at this on a previous episode, but it was officially confirmed. Cowboys promoted quarterback coach Kellen Moore to offensive coordinator, so they're going to have a 29-year-old OC.
20, I didn't realize he's only 29. I thought Kellen Moore was like 90. He's a former Boise State quarterback, isn't he?
Yes.
Boise State did some interesting things. I'm interested. I mean, I am. Athletically, it may not have been that great, but Boise State did some interesting things with their offense in the time that Kellen Moore played there. So it'd be intriguing to see what he can do with some of the weapons that are there and if he can really help this offense reach its potential. Whatever that is.
I'm really surprised to see how this plays out for Dak, Cooper, and
Well, Linehan
Gallup.
wasn't that impressive, so hopefully this improves.
I'm
Big
not
thing
concerned about Zeke.
is they need to get that
Right.
offensive line right. That gave them a lot of headaches this year.
A lot of injuries, though. I mean, you lose Frederick, you lose Smith. Who knows if Frederick even comes back 100% with his...
Yeah.
Guys have done it before, and as soon as you're over it, you're apparently good to go, but he was definitely dealing with symptoms for the entire season. So
we'll see.
All right, and then over in the Redskins, where they promoted quarterbacks coach Kevin O'Connell to the offensive coordinator and then demoted current OC Matt Cavanaugh to senior offensive assistant.
Okay.
Okay.
So they had a pretty meh offense anyway, so I don't know how much this affects anything.
They're going to
but
bring in a new quarterback.
it should-
They don't even expect Alex Smith to be ready for this season. If
It
at
should be
all.
better next year, though.
You would hope, but the
Yeah.
Redskins are probably going to be on a lot of disarray
Yeah.
on offense.
I mean, that's kind of their normal mode of operation.
Darius Geis coming back, you hope helps things.
Yeah, I think Geist will be the only piece people really want out of that offense going into drafts next year.
They move on from Jamison Crowder and Trey Quinn. Stay healthy.
All right. And then normally we don't talk about defensive players, but when he's the 4th overall all-time in total sacks, Julius Peppers announced his retirement after 17 seasons. Only player to ever play in both a Super Bowl and an NCAA Final Four.
Holy shit, that's right. That's way
Should
back, Nick.
should be a first ballot Hall of Famer.
Yeah, he absolutely should be. He was a monster in Carolina early on, and then had a solid stint in Chicago. Good role player for the Panthers in Green Bay over the last 2 years, and he turned in a nice career.
Yep. I was hoping he could get in the top 3 because he had an excellent career. Couldn't quite get there, but 4th overall in sacks when how stacked some of those early pass rushers were, and White and Smith isn't too shabby. All right, let's go ahead and jump over to our positional roundtable as we continue our postseason check-in series.
Postseason check-in.
All right, and this is the running back part 2. So if you're looking for part 1, go back to last Monday's episode where we talked with McNamara about the top 26 names. We're going to go a little faster through some of these because not all of them need as much talking. But we're going to start off with Peyton Barber. According to Dan, just looked it up. He is a RFA heading into this offseason. So if the Bucs bring in somebody, he may not be back in Tampa this next year. Performed okay. He was a kind of low-end RB3 most weeks where you're plugging in and you're pretty desperate.
Was really bad beginning of the year, and then he kind of figured some shit out towards the end of the year.
But
they had their offense kind of figured out.
But he still had 9 games under 50 yards, which is 3.7 yards per attempt. Running back was the weakness on this offense. They tried to address it last year by drafting Ronald Jones. That didn't pan out. I would be real surprised if they don't do something here or bring somebody in. And there's a couple names I have in mind that are guys in their late 20s that have been productive and will be available that could fill in as a bridge option.
Oh, the one that I've been hearing rumored more is Hunt.
Kareem Hunt would also
I've heard
be.
Hunt rumored to a lot of places. So
Hunt's rumored to a lot of places where Hunt would be fun, and if that happens, then great. But there's a couple other guys I could see there also.
Like even if he goes there, it doesn't make much of a difference in 19 because the amount of games he'll miss.
So
Right.
are the other names you're thinking of guys more like McCoy or Miller or Ajayi?
Yeah, Mark Ingram, C.J. Anderson, because Ingram's a UFA.
I also wouldn't be surprised if they drafted another one. I mean, you fill with McNichols, who's only a 5th-round pick. Jones.
Well, they should draft a mid-round running back.
They should.
I don't know necessarily who I want that to be yet. There's a couple names that I have in mind, but I haven't finished my running back study. But they definitely should spend at least a mid-round pick on a running back, like a 3rd or a 4th, and try to see if they can hit on a guy like a Marlon Mack or a Jordan Howard in those rounds.
Yeah, so I'd be moving on from Peyton Barber if you're a dynasty owner trying to look to either get younger or you try to find an owner who feels like he could be,
at least a decent throw-in depth piece.
Yeah.
So, and you think outlook for him, he's probably going to be
timeshare to start.
He'll run into he'll depth chart and hopefully he hangs on.
I think
the next Ravens running back that we all freak out over that is good for one season.
I don't want to talk about that.
I like that. There you go.
No,
cool. So
fuck you guys.
coming to Baltimore 2019.
No.
All right, let's move on to a guy who would have finished easily as a running back too if he'd stayed healthy the whole season. That was Sony Michel. Started a little slow in the season coming off a knee injury, and then he injured another, I believe it was his other knee, against Detroit later in the season. So what do we think about him overall? Did we see enough that we're confident in him heading into 2019, or is there some concerns just generally because he's a Patriots running back?
I'm confident in him, but you have to chalk it up to what Sony Michel is, and that's that he's not going to be in the top 1 or 2 tiers of running backs because he's not going to get any receiving work. Everybody was touting Sony Michel coming out of the draft as this big-time receiver who was going to have 80 targets and 50 receptions and put James White out of a job. And that's just not how the Patriots work. He only had 11 targets, and that's because of James White and what James White can do. So as long as James White's in New England, Sony Michel isn't going to be able to be that top tier running back. He'll be good, but you're not going to get the receiving upside out of him also like you do some other guys. And I do have concerns about the knees going forward. It was an issue in college too.
Yeah, I'm not as high on him as other people. 200 rushes. He had, just shy of 1,000 yards. As Hopper mentioned, 11 targets. You know what his role is. He is basically Deion Lewis without the receiving work. And as long as they have 3 running backs they trust, one of them being White for sure, if they don't, if they decide to keep using Burkhead, he'll always cap whatever limited upside he even has more so. And this is Michelle I'm talking about.
Michel's a late second, early third rounder in redraft to me. He's still a nice piece in Dynasty, though. Don't get me wrong.
Ooh, I would not take him in the second.
No. There's not enough pass catching upside with the depth of running backs.
Mm-hmm.
I can see him, though. It depends. There's a lot of people that are true believers in him.
In my hypothetical, running backs get picked heavy again.
Okay.
In redraft.
Okay.
I mean, even if they do, I can think of enough other names that I wouldn't take him in the
Just
second.
depends what we hear from camp with them. And if
It's more likely a third. I'm definitely more comfortable in the third.
I would like him more if there's just 2 backs. When you mix in Burkhead, his touches go down to like 13 to 17, and you're flirting with Boom Butts line there if he doesn't show efficiency.
Yeah, because they only pass the ball like 24% of the time when he's in the game,
and it goes.
They basically just run.
Yeah. It's. And who knows how that'll work out if teams start to figure that out.
All right, Dalvin Cook up next. Had kind of a rough season. Had a hamstring cramp that took him out for 4 weeks.
Cramp. That was one hell of a cramp.
Yeah, that was when he goes down, grabbing his hamstring, leaves the game, doesn't come back, says it's a cramp, and then we don't see him for a month.
Thanks, Cook.
Thanks,
Cramp.
Cook. But yeah, he looked better in the second half of the year when they went to more run-focused offense, but it was kind of hit or miss for the offensive line. Do the Vikings get this together well enough to make him viable? And where are you looking at him as a value next year?
He was an RB12 from weeks 9 on when he came back from injury. He was the RB6, I think, with Stefanski. That's only a 3-week sample. He averaged 18 touches with him in those weeks 15 through 17. So, I mean, I've always been high on Dalvin Cook. I like him in this offense. I fully expect this to not be. It won't be like a Colts turnaround when you just draft Quentin Nelson and that everything gets fixed. But he's a dual-purpose running back that can get it done, and he's proven that.
Well, I don't know about proven it. He flashed it this year, but he did miss time with injuries again. And I think the hype on Dalvin Cook was a year early. I hesitate to say a second-year player that missed the majority of his first year and part of his second year has proven much of anything, but he did flash the ability to be both a very good receiver. You'd like to see maybe a little bit more as a runner, but as Dan mentioned, it did get better the second half of the year as his touches went up. And I think the hype was justified, but I think the hype was a year early. And if he can stay healthy, him and Kerryon Johnson are very, very close for me as far as the injury concerns and what I think those two will be able to produce.
Yeah. I mean, it just depends. I mean, you can't predict hamstrings, ACLs, or something that like the new Tommy John
you
surgeries.
can predict repeated hamstring injuries. ACLs are harder. You can kind of predict hamstrings when it's a repeated thing. ACLs, not as much. Strains and sprains bother me a whole lot more, especially in a repeated fashion, than tears and breaks.
With Cook, though, it could have easily been a compensation injury with him coming off the ACL, so I'm not going to read into it too much quite yet.
No, I'm not labeling him as injury prone yet. Again, it's a guy who's, he tore something, which I don't count, and then missed part of really, an extended portion of his rookie season is what I would call this year, since, because of the ACL.
Mm-hmm. All right. Up next is Mark Ingram. He is going to be a UFA. He sounds like he wants to try to come back to New Orleans. There's rumor he may come back on a discount. What do we value him in New Orleans and outside of it?
Well, landing spot matters.
Obviously.
Just gonna start that now. In New Orleans, he is probably where he was not this year, but 2 years ago, I would think, for the 6th round, probably. Look, after he came back, he was good. His numbers haven't really decreased. at all. It's 4.7 yards per attempt, 6 touchdowns, 21 receptions. Alvin Kamara, it didn't completely take his role away. Now, if he does go elsewhere, I will say that Mark Ingram's numbers, unlike a lot of people, do not really decrease when he gets more work either. 2017 was his best efficiency season, but it was also his highest touch count with 288. So I think you have to value him as kind of that third tier running back if he does land elsewhere and say a Tampa Bay or a New York with the Jets or one of those places that are going to be, looking for a running back.
He just turned 29 in December.
That was the other point I was going to mention with his landing spot is he is 29, although he hasn't shown signs of slowing down, and I think he's only had 2 seasons where he's been over 250 touches.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head here. With it depends where he lands. There's not a lot of teams that need a run. I mean, there's a lot of teams that need running backs, but I'm not quite sure if he's a guy that's going to be a team's going to be like, all right, we're set, and stone at running back. We don't need to draft anybody or bring anybody else, and so he'll have to compete. It's just whether or not we get to see 2017 Mark Ingram or see something, prior to that.
I mean, yeah, and prior to that still isn't bad. I know. Had a season where he's been below like 4.5 yards an attempt, I think was the note, or maybe that was CJ Anderson, but still, or whatever, you get it.
Yeah.
He's been very, very good consistently. Hasn't slowed down. Yes, 2017 was his best year, but it wasn't his best year by a lot. And that's the age in. I don't see New York with the Jets is really that viable of a landing spot because I think that they know that they're in a rebuild. Tampa, I like more, and that's because they have the pieces on offense to be competitive, but I think they're going to want to spend higher round draft picks to try to fix that defense. So what do? You find a bridge free agent that can produce for a couple of years.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind that. All right. Up next, we got Dion Lewis, kind of a very, very disappointing player. We were pretty high on him coming into the season. Turns out the correct answer at running back for Tennessee was nobody until December.
As usual.
Dion Lewis was startable the first 3 or 4 weeks, and then he fell off of a cliff, I think.
Yeah, but I mean...
Or Derrick Henry pushed him.
Ben Watsoned him.
Oh, Jesus. There it is.
Yep.
But yeah, just didn't really work out. The team as a whole, though, was pretty awful when it came to offensive production for the majority of the year. So was it a Dion Lewis fit situation? Was it the offense as a whole didn't work out? Do we have any expectations for next year, considering he got paid a decent amount?
I mean, he's still their pass catching back. Derrick Henry, he's got stone hands. It's not like he's going to be the guy that's going to, all of a sudden see 60 plus targets in a season. So, the role should be his if they don't bring anybody else in. It's just if they do that, then he's dead. If they don't, then I think he's a buy low candidate if you're looking for an RB5 or if you're just looking for bench pieces that could provide some weekly value during the bye weeks. That's how I view Dion Lewis in Dynasty right now.
Yeah. I think y'all pretty much covered Dion Lewis. I don't have a whole lot to say. Just he fell off a cliff. They paid him, so I think there are expectations. They got a lot of work to do with the offense, especially to integrate a guy like Dion Lewis, who's not the between the tackles banger that Derrick Henry is. So I don't know. I'm not necessarily sold. He's a guy that falls into a more flyer status for me in redraft next year.
Yeah,
I could go with that for redraft.
Kind of like a Theo Riddick or plus, or a slightly worse James White.
It depends how it depends what kind of hype we get from the offense during training camp. What reports we hear. I mean, try to give us something because this is another new OC, and it depends where the where the Derrick Henry hype takes him, and then what he does to Dion Lewis's draft value.
Yeah, I could see the counter hype on Lewis bumping his value up if you start getting some counter Derrick Henry hype going. But if Derrick Henry's hype gets high enough, Lewis may be a value next year.
Yeah.
All right. One of the pieces in Indy, Nyheim Hines, comes in at 32. Had a pretty solid year when Marlon Mack wasn't there, but was relegated to pretty much just a PPR back otherwise. Do we see any growing role for him here, or is he just kind of a pass-catching guy from here on out?
I don't feel it's confident. I mean, I saw in your notes, Hopper, that the 85 targets is, I think it was 81 targets is nice.
81 targets to just 85 rushes, just 4 touchdowns in his rookie season.
Yeah, and as Nick mentioned a bunch, as we mentioned a bunch, they have the most cap space here, and obviously, I don't think they're going to bring another running back, at least in terms of high value wise. But if they do, because there's a chance they could, I'm not as sold on Himes. He is a one-trick pony, but when Mac's healthy, when the offense is going, they want to run the football. Himes becomes more like Austin Eckler-ish, where you're hoping game script, kind of fixes it, but I'm not as sold on him.
I mean, obviously everything changes if they bring something in, but for right now, I think he defined himself a role in his rookie season, which is what you could ask for. And the question I pose after this is, could he be destined for a Tariq Cohen, James White type of fantasy involvement going forward? And I'm not 100% ready to sign off on that, but I do see a world where that could happen, especially if they stand pat at the running back side, which I think that they would be smart to do. I could see him carving out his role as a pass catcher in a James White-esque fashion.
Yeah, I see more James White than Cohen. He doesn't have the explosiveness or the open field elusiveness as
he
Cohen
doesn't have
does.
the between the tackles ability either that Cohen does, weirdly enough. So I agree that he is more James White.
Yeah, and that's if he really defines that role and they want to go into more of an RBBC. It just depends what the Colts want to do. They have a lot of backs there right now.
Yeah, and also part of that receiving production, there were injury issues in that backfield, especially with Marlon Mack.
And there's no other real receiving options outside of T.Y. Hilton and Ebron, which I expect them to fix. So it depends what they added as pass catchers in terms of wide receiver 2 next to Hilton, and with Jack Doyle coming back, you have Ebron. Who knows?
Let's throw a bow on this one. We're not sure.
Yeah.
There's a possibility it could happen, but I don't think your confidence in it happening is very high.
Yeah.
No,
There
and
you go.
even if it does, I don't think the ceiling is that crazy. So it
No,
wouldn't be something I'd over exert yourself trying to read.
He's
the
a
tea leaves
waiver
on.
guy in 19. He's a waiver guy in redraft in 19.
Yep.
And just kind of an interesting
And
end of bench hold in Dynasty.
if Mac is banged up through preseason or something.
All right. Up next is Isaiah Crowell, was signed to a 3-year deal for the Jets. It looks like that may be more of a backup running back role as they look to either draft or bring somebody in to pair with Darnold. He flashed a little bit. He had a couple nice games, but for the most part, it was pretty ugly in New York.
Yep, he was hurt some. They played from behind a lot, so there wasn't a whole lot of rushing opportunity even after Bilal Powell got hurt. Powell is going to be a free agent after this season, but they can also cut Crowell for just $2 million in dead cap. So who knows what this Jets backfield is going to look like. The efficiency numbers on Crowell were good, I will say that. But the touch numbers being down is what really killed him. It was like Cleveland the year before.
Yeah, and it was basically 2 really big games against Detroit and Denver that made most of his hay in the season, too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it was.
He was like J.J. light, except it wasn't like pieced together. In like consecutive games, it was boom bust, and then injured and busts with a couple of okay games in there.
Yeah, if he ends up being one of the few guys here, I'm interested next year, but I'm very not expecting that to happen.
I fully expect the Jets to add in just more playmakers in general, and that being at running back.
All right. Up next is Kerryon Johnson. We talked about quite a bit in our rookie recap episode, but wanted to talk about him just a little bit more. What do we see from him going forward? Any change thoughts here? Are we basically just assuming it's his backfield as long as he's healthy?
It's his backfield as long as he's healthy, and he's a running back 1 as long as he's healthy. He is, I think, when we look back on this class, barring injuries, and obviously what happens in New England, I think Kerryon Johnson is what a lot of people thought Sony Michel was going to be, as far as that dual threat receiver plus runner.
Yeah, he's definitely handling both roles to a significant more volume than Michel is. Probably the second best all-around back that we saw this year from the rookies, and because he's a better pass catcher than Chubb is.
Yeah.
No, I agree. I think Michel and Chubb are much closer to comparison than what Kerryon is to either of those two because of his ability as a pass catcher. But again, we noted it coming out of college, and it happened this year too. Kerryon has had a history of injury problems, so that is one thing you have to watch. When he's healthy, he's going to be good, but he's got a history already, and that's not just at the NFL level. That does date back to his days at Auburn.
Yeah, well, there is. Okay, so Blunt's an FA. Riddick could be cut to save, I think, 3.5 around there in cap. They have no other running backs besides, Zach Zenner and other names that we don't really care about.
I would be shocked if they get rid of Riddick just because
I
they
think
trust
they could
him.
also bring in another back because you bring in, who is it, Darrell Bevel as your new OC? It's a Bevel. It's a new OC.
Yep.
It means a lot of running. He fits what Matt Patricia likely will do as a defensive-headed, defensive-minded coach, and that's run the football. We've seen from Johnson, as we've mentioned already before, that he can do it all, but can he stay healthy? And we've obviously just touched on that, but that's where my concerns are, is if they're going to give him a massive workload, hold on until he wears down. And what we saw this year was kind of that same, course. That's with less work.
And to me, I wouldn't necessarily term it wearing down, because the performance never slipped, and that's what I think of when I see wearing down. It's the injuries that are concerning. Now, you're right. Darrell Bevel is going to run a lot. There's going to be a lot of between the tackles running. So I would not be surprised if they bring in a bigger type of between the tackles back to use as a change of pace, like a Latavius Murray type of player. But I don't think it's a danger to carry on as long as he's healthy. I think it is carry on the backfield.
Yeah, it'll just be an interesting name as a handcuff in case anything happens to Johnson.
Guy that, a vulture is red zone work.
Maybe not. I don't know. I got to go back and look at Darrell Bevel's history, but if I remember correctly, he was more of a one-back guy and then threw in some change of pace, i.e. CJ Procise.
Yeah. All right. Up next is Jalen Richard, first Raiders back. He actually finished as the highest scoring of any of them. Didn't really do much over the season except as just an occasional PPR plug-in. He showed up on a couple waiver episodes as just kind of a name to consider. Do we want anything really to do with the current Raiders backfield, or are we hoping that they completely change this up?
Martin and Lynch are both free agents, and I don't know what the fuck John Gruden's going to do. I don't care about Jalen Richard, though.
Nope, I don't know what John Gruden's going to do either. This team is in complete disarray. It doesn't really have direction right now.
I don't want to shock me if they bring in Bell.
I don't care about Jalen Richard. Jalen Richard is not going to be the starting running back of the Raiders. I don't know who's landing there. I don't know who's coming in there. I don't know if they draft somebody. I don't know if they sign somebody, but it isn't going to be Jalen Richard.
It might even be Nick Sparks. We just never know.
I'm way too tall to be a running back.
Have we seen Kerryon Johnson?
He's not 6'2". I think he's like 6'1".
Fine. Jalen Hurd from Baylor, ex-running back at 6'4".
Wide receiver.
Yeah.
Now he's a wide receiver. All right, Mike Davis up next. Did some decent fill-in work with the Seahawks with their injury carousel that they had this season. Looked okay. Doesn't seem to have much value while he's in Seattle.
He's a free agent.
But he is a free agent, so could he land somewhere?
He's going to Oakland.
He's got the name for it. Mike Davis sounds like a true Raiders name.
He's too young to go to Oakland.
That's right. He's 28, I think.
Retirees only.
He might be just young. He might be just old enough to go to Oakland.
They only take people that are over 30.
That's true.
He's 20. He'll be 26 next year.
Okay. Then he's too young.
He's in his prime. Oakland doesn't want anything to do with him.
The Jets. He's going to the Jets.
Another just okay back.
Tampa Bay, because they may lose Charles Sims. They need a pass catching back. I don't know.
He is the next 1 year flash in the pan Ravens running back.
You can't make that call twice.
Yeah.
No, that would make more sense, honestly.
There's so many running backs that are
Barber.
free agents there. I don't want to talk about their backfield.
Peyton Barber's who's going to go to Oakland. I had it wrong.
There we go.
Right.
All right. Latavius Murray, he is still signed with the Vikings. He was a solid handcuff for a few games this year where he made the majority of his production. I think it was mostly that Cardinals game where he just blew up for 2 touchdowns. But maybe a cap casualty this year. The Vikings are a little behind the 8 ball cap-wise, and there's a couple re-signings they're going to be looking to make. So do we think he stays with the Vikings? Do we think he gets cut? And where could he land?
I think he gets cut because they're third lowest in cap right now. I think they're at $1 million, $2 million above cap right now. So
last I saw that they were projected to come into the year negative.
Yeah.
Either way, they're not in a good spot. So you're going to end up probably cutting the guy that at least will save you some cap space.
He's going to be the next flash in the pan 1 year starter for the Baltimore Ravens.
He's going back to Oakland.
You're going back to Oakland. Now the Jets, maybe? Bridge? I don't know. I don't think he's in Minnesota. It'll depend on where he lands. I think if he lands in a place where he gets an opportunity, he's worth a look. If anything, other than a what we thought Alex Collins was going to be type of player, or what Peyton Barber was this year, or something like that. He's proven he can do it when he's been given the chance. So it'll be interesting.
That's pretty much what I wrote down. It's just if he ends up in a spot where he's the primary backup of let's say Leonard Fournette, I'm intrigued because TJ Yeldon's not there anymore. So
that would also be interesting because Leonard Fournette's going to get hurt in the third game and average 3.5 a carry the rest of the year.
Fucking, I'm done with all this. It's done.
All right, we'll move on. Doug Martin up next. We're going right
More
back to
of the
Oakland.
same. The next 3 running backs are more of the same.
Well, at least the next one's fun.
No, Doug Martin's fine.
He's fine.
No, I feel very differently about all 3 of these, actually. I thought Doug Martin had a very solid season, and I think he can land some places as a very solid backup / change of pace back that, he bounced back. He had his best season in 2 years from an efficiency standpoint. I don't think he gets another crack at starting, but I think he can go someplace and be a decent backup or a handcuff. I don't want him on my roster. I don't want him anywhere near my team, but because I don't want to be stuck with him mostly, especially in Dynasty.
I think John Gruden brings him back. He fucking loves, he has loving eyes for Doug Martin, and Martin was good there,
Flashing those hungry eyes.
But Martin's always shown this. He'll show some flashes, efficiency flashes for a year, and then he's dead for 2 years.
Yeah, I think it was 4.7, 2.9, 2.9, 4.2 yards per carry the last 4 seasons.
Okay, so it'll be
2.9.
It'll be back under 3.
Yeah,
2.9.
2.9. Why I want nothing of Doug Martin this year.
Doug Martin is the next flash in the pan 1 year running back for the Baltimore Ravens.
For the Kansas, the Chiefs need a running back too. But we'll get to that later. Yeah.
Damian Williams and spoilers, Damian Williams and Gus Edwards are the same person.
All right. LaShawn McCoy, second to last one here before you hit the beer review.
Take him out back like Old Yeller and be done with it.
You can't kill Wolverine.
He is the next flash in the 1 year flash in the pan for the Baltimore Ravens.
They're not going to spend that much.
He's going to Philly.
He's going back home to his wife.
He needs to retire.
He does.
I don't know what last year was. I don't know if it was a product of Buffalo's O-line, the way Buffalo used him, Buffalo's lack of an offense, what
all the
Sean
above
McCoy has left in the tank. But it was not good. It was ugly. He either needs to get out of there or get out in general.
This is last year of his deal. They could cut him to say $4 million. They're not hurting for a cap,
they
but
should.
he could be.
They may keep him around
I
just
think they
to
cut him and Ivory, and I think they're just going to get younger. This whole offense needs to be. The running back core.
Saving $4 million isn't that much money for having a veteran running back. They probably keep him and then literally ride him and just boot him out next year.
So for 3 games until he gets hurt now, because now the Wolverine's out of him.
I'd like to see him draft something. The defense is good. They got a flash in Robert Foster. They need wide receivers, but I wouldn't mind if they went for a running back. In the draft
honestly,
also.
they should spend all their picks on wide receiver, tight end, and offensive line.
Yeah, they should spend all of their picks on offense. In general.
Yeah.
They'll just treat it like a fantasy football defense. For the number 1 pick, we draft the Alabama Crimson Tide offense.
That's right. We draft their running back core.
Josh Jacobs.
All right.
I know.
I
love him.
Last guy before the beer review. It is a guy who would have been way higher if he'd played the whole season, but it is Leonard Fournette.
Leonard Fournette the last 2 years has been really good, and then he gets hurt, and then he averages under 3.5 yards a carry, hence the joke earlier. He's apparently cleared the air with Jacksonville. There's some bad blood there. That offense is going to be in a massive state of flux. He's not going to be a high pick. There's going to be a lot of people with a bad taste in their mouth. The efficiency numbers for Fournette haven't been great, and he can't stay healthy. So you can't sell him in Dynasty. You got to hold on to him and hope he figures it out. He's still a young guy, just a second-year player. But you've been disappointed by him. And I think in redraft, you got to be – he's going to be a volume-based pick, but not a sexy one.
He might be a value pick, depending on how far he falls.
He could be.
When he plays, he gets 20-plus targets. You'll lose your pass catching
Targets?
back. Targets. Touches.
Targets.
Well, he could see targets if you lose. They're getting rid of TJ Yeldon.
20-plus targets a game.
20-plus targets a game.
PPR all the way.
He's going to put CMC to shame.
Triple the reception record.
Right.
Leonard
He
Fournette,
gets to
PPR
work.
back.
He does get the work, and that behind him it's in flux too. Without Yeldon, Carlos Hyde, I think could be.
I mean, they need money, so he could easily be a cap
They
casualty.
need a lot of money. This team, as Hopper mentioned, is like the offense, especially it could look completely different. Come August,
And Fournette's one of the few pieces who I am confident is going to be there.
and they'll ride him too. They're going to try to treat him like Zeke, and we'll see if he can hold up.
Yeah. If he's there in the mid to late third round, I'm taking him.
I'll take the risk on it.
Uh,
I won't. As Hopper mentioned, I won't feel great about it. But if he's not my RB1, I'm fine.
yeah, and if he's my 2 or 3, perfect.
Yeah.
All right, that's all we got on Fournette. Unless Hopper, you got any other thoughts?
No, I'm right there with you, Nick. Actually, I will take a risk on Leonard Fournette in the third round as my second running back. Or if I went wide receiver heavy and I'm pulling a Nick Sparks and just throwing every running back on my roster that might be good, hoping 2 of them hit.
Hey, sometimes it works, sometimes it don't.
Exactly, but that's a route I would be comfortable with going with Fournette. But I'm not spending a top 2 round pick on him at all. He's a guy that I want to wait to see if he falls to me.
I agree. All right, let's review a beer.
Beer review.
All right, thoughts on 6 Mile Bridges Cinnamon Maple Stout?
So asterisk on this review for me. I'm drinking a little bit warmer than what it should be. It didn't quite cool down to the right temperature. Up front, decent amount of cinnamon. It fades into the roastiness that you would expect from a stout. Maple catches just a tinge on the end and a little bit of sweetness that mixes with dark chocolate, but not a major pickup there. So overall, though, it's a really good drinkable beer. It is different. You don't see a ton of cinnamon and maple stouts out there. I think if it was right temperature, it may taste closer to maybe like a snickerdoodle almost, but a little more cinnamon. I don't know.
Too much chocolate for a snickerdoodle for me.
It is too much chocolate for a snickerdoodle. You're right, but yeah, either way, it's really good. It's definitely a solid stout, and I think the cinnamon's an interesting twist.
I don't know how I feel about it because it's very heavy. It's very heavy cinnamon.
On the front.
It tastes like it almost tastes a bit flat. Like I expect a little bit more, chocolate and just coffee notes
hold
from
on.
the
Do you have the dented can?
What? Which one?
One of those 2 cans you guys have should be dented.
No, it's not mine.
Mine's not dented. There was 3 cans though, so
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, that's probably the dented one then. Mine felt like it was overcarbonated too, and that's the other cat. Mine kind of popped, like almost exploded when I opened it.
That was mine.
And that's
Mine too.
that's the other caveat is this has been sitting for a while, a couple weeks, over a month actually.
Okay.
So I'm thinking that it might have had more carbonation if we had gotten it on time instead of being, snowed out twice and then some.
It
Yeah.
could be.
I actually really like it. I think it drinks great. It's kind of a weird combo of flavors I haven't really had before. So kind of that cinnamon chocolate coffee.
I'm starting
maple.
to see them a lot. They're a lot more used in like imperial stouts and barrel aged stuff because it really mixes well with all that. Like on its own though, it's missing some stuff. In my opinion.
I don't know that I've had this exact flavor combination though.
No, and you haven't. That's what Dan was saying too. Is in bourbon barrel age, you get kind of a natural, which bourbon carries baking spices with it anyway, so
exactly.
it blends really nicely. Whereas in a traditional stout, you're more roast, dark chocolate. You don't normally expect cinnamon there, and you put cinnamon on the front. So Dan just mentally associates it with things that have a bit more complex flavor than cinnamon up front, roast in the middle, and dark chocolate on the back.
Which is probably why I'm left a little more, disappointed by it because I just had my quad barrel from Epic, and yeah, it's like the 10 times better version than this.
I have not opened that yet.
Yeah, it's gonna be amazing.
All right. Well, I'm a big fan. Sorry, that sounds like you two are not quite as impressed.
Well,
No,
he likes
I'm
it.
impressed. Like, don't take that as me not being impressed at all. I think it's very good and very well done for what it is.
All right. Well, thank you very much, 6 Mile Bridge. Let's go ahead and jump on to part 4. I just titled this "Other Names Worth Discussing."
Are they? Are they worth discussing?
Some of these are, and there's some names on there that we don't have on there that we can mention too.
Yeah, I try to pick through some of the rookies and sophomores that were further down. I kind of just kicked off the list because we discussed them already. So I only have a few higher names for those. Starting off, though, with number 41 is Duke Johnson. He dead.
He's got no out until 2020, and I don't see his role changing. And
he's stuck.
He doesn't even get the pass catching work that would give him the Woodhead, James White type of production when used. And Baker just doesn't have the check down, loving eyes that we would want to see from a Duke Johnson owner.
All right, well, I guess I better play this then.
It's been a while.
He'll be resurrected soon.
He will.
Just got to get through 2019 and maybe 2020.
Yeah, or Nick Chubb breaks.
It's a fucking tragedy that they signed him, and then I love Nick Chubb. I'm fine with him there. It's just as someone who likes Duke Johnson, this is so fucking stupid.
No, I agree. He's been trapped his entire career with somebody else.
All right. Up next, Alex Collins, a guy
He's R. Kelly.
I personally bought way too far into.
Not the only person.
That burned me way too many leagues. Basically, any league that I just totally bombed in was because I overinvested in Alex Collins with a low running back strategy.
Well, because he was the most popular. If you draft 2-3 wide receivers, draft Alex Collins to be your
safety net.
Your safety net.
Except your safety net's got full of holes.
Except he got hurt. He's got no pass catching work, and he lost his job to something named Gus Edwards.
No, he lost his job to something named Buck Allen, and then Gus Edwards happened.
And then Kenneth Dixon. And then T.Y.
Dixon came back from
at the time Montgomery.
Injured, suspension, rehab, something. I don't know. He's been out for everything. Literally, if you can think of a reason somebody's missed football games, that's been Kenneth Dixon. Alex Collins is still young enough to where he could catch on someplace. I don't know if or when that happens, but it damn sure isn't in Baltimore.
I have no faith in him.
Yep.
He's a jag. Like, he's just a guy. He's basically Spencer Ware.
Runs real hard, but
and then he gets hurt.
He fits the Jets mold for running back.
He's Isaiah Crowell light. So yes, he does. He's going to Tampa Bay.
I don't want to talk about this anymore. That just made me sad. Jamal Williams.
I don't care.
As long as Aaron Jones isn't suspended or hurt, he's dead in the water until Mike McCarthy finds another job.
He does love him some Jamal Williams.
Well, I mean, he may get reevaluated with a new system, so it's at least worth keeping an eye on him.
Yeah.
Sure.
All right. Frank Gore. What is dead may never die.
He's a free agent going back to Miami.
He'll be back in Miami. He'll be annoying to Kenyon Drake owners, and that's about it.
Except he, for a good chunk of the year, outproduced Kenyon Drake.
Again, annoying to Kenyon Drake owners.
All right. Royce Freeman, who we have talked about a bit, but just wanted to have him here because he was high enough on the list that I figured it was worth including him.
No, it is worth, and what we said in the rookie episode still stands. I don't think Royce Freeman is dead yet. I'm not giving up on Royce Freeman yet. He averaged 4 yards a carry, but was only 33rd in run blocking efficiency, so the line wasn't doing him any favors, and he was doing all right, especially for his rookie year. And I think had he been on another team that didn't have Philip Lindsay lighting the world on fire, it would have been a much different season for him. And I don't know whether what Philip Lindsay did for a back his size or with his build is sustainable.
It won't be. Royce is buy low for me if you can get him for cheap, especially now in draft season where you're looking at, equivalent your picks to where running backs are. Royce would be one of the top backs in this draft class.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
So that's where you got to kind of view him as. Lindsay basically did what Kamara did 2 years ago, except he's not Kamara. There's no pass catching work for either of these backs, which is where his only concern really is for me. Whole new system. I expect Royce to take control of this backfield, though.
All right. So you try to convince the owner that Royce Freeman is really Ronald Jones and buy him for pennies
you
on the dollar.
trade Philip Lindsay for Royce Freeman in a draft pick. Boom.
Carlos Hyde.
Dead.
Do I care? Dead.
We need to make that a hopper drop. Dead.
It's stolen.
I'm sure it is.
It's not my humor. I'm stealing humor from elsewhere.
Not the first time that's happened.
Nope, not in the
And
least
it won't
bit.
be the last.
So sounds like we don't expect him back in Jacksonville.
Nope.
Is he going to have a chance of finding a spot?
Oakland.
Actually,
Oakland, yeah.
I kinda like that.
Oakland's actually probably
He
Probably
fits
the
the
perfect
age
spot for him.
profile. I'm sure John Gruden loves him.
Well, John Gruden loves everybody.
You'll pair him with Doug Martin, and then you'll.
That would be a terrible decision.
It's John Gruden, Nick.
No, Hyde's about old enough to belong in Oakland,
Yeah.
and he breaks enough.
Or wherever the hell they're going to play next year.
Right, and he's got too good of a track record to be the next one-year flash in the pan for the Baltimore Ravens. So Oakland, yeah, I like that idea.
All right. The one that everyone is freaking out about in dynasty circles right now, Damian Williams.
Because
No. It's the first season. Damian Williams is not a fresh chicken for starters. He's been around the league for a bit. It's his first season over 4 yards per attempt. His career high in rush attempts with 50. And so you're going to tell me a guy that's only had, his career high in rush attempts for a season is 50 is going to come in and take on a full workload. And he created just 1.67 yards per carry, which is good for 112th. With 58% light front rate. Thank you, Patrick Mahomes. He's a guy that has all the signs pointing to regression of where he's going to be overdrafted. But then again, there's some pause because he may not be, because the offense actually fits him as long as he keeps seeing light fronts and Patrick Mahomes continues to be a baller and working the ball downfield. Is anybody you put behind that line is going to have all kinds of room to work.
he's Alex Collins of this year. He's
Well,
going
no,
to be.
that's the next guy.
Sure. But either way, I still think he is. I think they both will be.
I said that they're the same person.
Yeah.
And it's really the
That's
same
true.
feeling for me for both of
Because
them.
it just depends where the Chiefs draft their running back. If they draft one in like the 5th or 6th round, or, 5th, 6th, 7th round, I'll feel better. Then I'll move Damian Williams afterwards. But his value is going to tank if they draft somebody in day 1 or day 2. Not
If
day
you
1.
own Damian Williams in Dynasty right now, sell.
I've seen him going for first round picks, so yeah.
If you can get a first, I'll take two. I'll take two high seconds for him. I'll take a 2020 first for him. They won't get that, but if I get one,
I'd take a second for him. A
Yeah.
second.
that
All
draft
right.
class is gonna be deep.
I suppose we won't have to spend too much time on this with the clone, Gus Edwards.
I hate him even more. So
He was the latest one-year flash in the pan starter for the Baltimore Ravens. Baltimore's very good at run blocking. So whoever you put back there again was probably going to produce. See Alex Collins, Buck Allen, Kenneth Dixon. 20 With that, though, Gus Edwards still managed to have a negative 20.2 production premium.
Jesus,
23rd in breakaway runway. He evaded just 1.8 tackles a game. Juke rate was only good for 56. And he only created 0.89 yards per carry.
Lamar
So
Jackson,
he was running
folks.
downhill through open holes.
Running downhill through open holes because people were worried about Lamar Jackson running. So again, it's like Damian Williams. There are all sorts of signs that say he is going to regress and not be able to reproduce this.
If
Or,
there's-
or someone will be able to come in and do
if
better.
there's an offense that
Or
I'm
so-
avoiding in
Mhm.
2019, it's Baltimore. The Chargers figured out Lamar Jackson, which isn't that hard to do. I'm surprised it took teams that long to figure that out in the first place.
Right.
I have no faith, and I'm a huge Ravens fan. I have very little faith in this offense next season.
I think Gus Edwards is more likely to bust than Damian Williams is, and I think Damian
Oh,
Williams
for
is
sure.
pretty likely to bust next year too. And that's because they all have signs. There are a million signs that say, well, red flags. Red flags is the term I'm looking for. There's a million red flags.
It's like a Soviet parade over here.
Yeah. And I'm stalling when I'm drafting them.
Boom.
All right, up next, a guy who we all called to have an improved position heading into 2019, and that is Ito Smith. Looks like Tevin Coleman is going to hit the road. It should be the Devontae Freeman and Ito Smith trail.
Will it be though? New offensive coordinator.
It is.
Yeah, what's old is new again, though. So, yes, it will be.
Okay.
So I don't know how significant the role will be, but he will get involved.
He should have a role.
At worst, he'll be a change of pace guy. It might not be the same level that we saw out of the Sarkisian system, but I expect Smith's going to be involved.
I think he'll be involved too, and he's going to be a guy that you can put in flex consideration. He's not going to be a week-to-week start, but he is going to be a guy that, during bye weeks or if you catch an injury or whatever, that you're going to have around. So he's what we call a throw-in piece for dynasty trades, but for a redraft, he is a later round pick.
I don't share that much enthusiasm, but
Well, the big thing, they need to fix the offensive line. Hopefully Cutter coming in can help because Sarkisian seemed to not keep that together. But they may want to invest both either in free agency or the draft in helping to shore that up because that was definitely a big weakness on that offense this
and
year.
I'm sure they'll bring another running back too with the loss of Coleman.
Yep.
I don't expect him worth much value, though.
Well, yeah, I expect him to be right where Smith was. That day 3 pick.
Smith was a real early day 3 pick. That was a 4th rounder.
Yeah,
I'm expecting more like a 6th or 7th
I still
rounder.
wouldn't. It still wouldn't shock me if they bring in someone.
All right, Giovanni Bernard completely lost his job to Mixon.
As he should.
There is an out on his contract, I believe, so they can move on if they decide they don't want to bring him back. But he is solid if Mixon gets hurt or misses time, and he's not too expensive.
He's got to stay healthy himself.
He does have to stay healthy himself. So what do we see going forward for Mr. Bernard here?
I don't know what the Bengals cap situation is, but I think he stays, and I think he's a handcuff, and that's it. And if he does get cut, he's going to Oakland.
If they cut him, they save $3 million. They are 9th in cap space.
Over $50 million already.
They got a lot of holes, I think, still to figure out. So they could keep him. They could cut him. There's something behind him besides Mark Bolton, who did absolutely nothing last year.
I don't know. If he stays, he's not worth anything. If he goes elsewhere, like Oakland, and ends up starting, then sure, he's a mid-round pick.
Jets.
Nah.
He's below Powell plus.
Okay.
Yeah. I agree with that.
I see that.
Jalen Samuels.
Dead.
He's not dead.
Okay, fine. Firmly behind James Conner.
Though they did change OCs, so it'll be interesting to see what happens there.
I don't think he's completely dead, but I think he's better for I think he's better for NFL. Like we've said before during his draft or during his during the draft time, he's a better NFL player than he will be a fantasy player. And Connor's not a true pass catcher. He's not Bell in terms of a pass catching back, but he's good enough.
Samuel's best trait was pass catching.
Yeah.
Yep. I think we'll see flashes of him when Connor's healthy, but basically, I think he's just strictly he's in terms of startability, he's a handcuff.
He'll be a handcuff. He'll have some of that. He'll be drafted as a handcuff / guy who can fill in as a PPR back if you see that in the first few weeks of the season.
Yep.
All right, Josh Adams.
He is fucking dead.
Dead.
Oh.
So evaluation, I thought was wrong through a good chunk of the season, and then towards the end of the year, it looked like it was right. That he's just a guy.
He is, and we didn't like him coming into the draft. He didn't get drafted. The Eagles just know how to semi-hit on these UDFAs that we don't like.
Get some juice.
Corey Clement.
Get some juice out of him, and then
Josh
chuck him to the curb when they're done.
This is where I want Hunt to land. If he lands anywhere, it's here. Yes, that's my thought.
Yeah. Ajayi potentially is Ajayi back?
He's an FA.
He's a free agent.
Yeah, I don't think he'll be back.
You should say UFAs too.
I'm saying FA because I want
Doug
to.
Martin.
Oh, God, no.
He's going to Oakland. Well, he's too young to go to Oakland, but he's going to Oakland.
Yeah. Josh Adams is not the answer there. They'll figure something out. They have like 0 cap space.
So keep an eye on who's undrafted, and we can start projecting who'll be their starting running back next year.
Right. They may draft
Exactly.
somebody because they have like 0 cap space. So they could draft a running back. David Montgomery would be interesting.
Ooh.
All right.
Yes, he would.
Elijah McGuire, who, if they were setting the lineup today, maybe you're starting running back in New York.
Injuries beset his season. He was impressive last year. Didn't really repeat that this year. Corey Clement style. So
Yeah, I think when we watched him, he was viewed as more just an athlete than a running back, and we're still going to get that. And the Jets are going to bring somebody in. I completely expect it. So dead.
All right. Marshawn Lynch.
He should just retire.
He should retire. He may end up back in Oakland, though, where he was decently efficient. I think it's Oakland or retirement for Lynch.
Yep.
And so if they don't play in Oakland, he
This
retires.
is their last year in Oakland. No, they're not even in Oakland. They're in San Antonio, right?
Well, they haven't. We have no
They
idea where they
decided
play.
yet. Yeah, so
we don't know where they're playing.
He will only play if they stay in Oakland for this last year.
If they don't, he
If
retires.
they don't, he retires.
Yep.
Chris Thompson.
He's got to stay healthy.
Please. But
And even then, with Darius guys coming in, I don't know what his role is.
Though,
I love his pairing with guys, though.
first ballot Hall of Fame hype man.
He was
is.
great watching him at the fantasy convention.
By the way, speaking of that, did you see my my retweet earlier?
I
that he had
did.
showing?
July 12th through the 14th, potentially, it seems like?
Yeah, no, it looks like it is. That was the guy that runs it. He
Okay.
He tweeted dates, even though there's nothing official on the sites or anything like that. He tweeted dates at Patrick Mahomes.
If you get a
there's,
Mahomes versus Josh Allen thing,
Twitter beef. Mahomes versus Josh Allen in a throw off.
Could
Because
put
who
up
has the
Mahomes.
bigger arm?
Okay.
My money's on Mahomes.
I'd be close.
It would be close. Now, if he has to hit an actual target, then it's
That's not even close.
If
then.
it's just throwing the football, Lawn,
If
that
he's
could
throwing
be
the football
closer.
Far, it'll be close. If you have to aim it, then
then it's
then you might be fucked if you pick
then
Josh
it's
Allen
Mahomes.
or Josh Allen.
all right. So Thompson, don't really see much value for him. What's his contract situation look like?
I'll tell you. Keep talking.
Because he's always real fun when he's healthy, but man, does it not last ever.
he is, especially when he gets targeted too. He could be a dynamic piece of that offense if that offense, existed.
Yeah, that offense may not even have a pulse next year.
All right, Chris Thompson. If they cut him, they can save just shy of $1 million, and he's on the last year of his deal. So I don't see
he's
him leaving.
playing there this year then, because they're not going to cut him for $1 million. So
It'll be him and guys as
Yeah.
they figure out the quarterback situation, which isn't
And-
good this year.
And they have a bad situation, but they're not going to cut him.
No, they wouldn't save enough to cut him.
All right.
Nope.
Moving on.
Rashad Penny. This is the last rookie or sophomore that I squeezed in. After this, I thought it was after number 60. I thought we were too low.
See, he showed a little bit of enough for me to be intrigued. I don't see Seattle giving up on him though. They cut a lot of flack for drafting him. They want to
Deserved flag.
defend it. Yeah, very well
Deserved.
deserved. Very well deserved. I think this is a camp battle to watch.
it's
Between,
exactly
him
what we
and
thought
Carson.
Rashad Penny was going to be. The first off, the Seahawks got really good at run blocking, so he had a lot of holes to run through. That was good. We knew he was fast. We knew he could get through openings if he had them blocked. We also predicted that he would get hurt, and he did. So because of his running style. So it's a thing of, yes, I think it was a broken finger. So it's not something I'm necessarily worried about repeating, but I think he did flash enough to where, there could be some potential there. But we also always thought with Rashad Penny coming in, it was more of a late year 2 to year 3 type of breakout if it was going to happen, not initially, because there are some things that needed fixed.
He's
Yeah.
another low, or he's like Freeman, another buy low candidate for me. I have a lot more faith in Carson, but in terms of Philip Lindsay doing the same production because this is a very run heavy team, I just have a little more faith in Penny and be able to put it together.
Yeah, we saw enough flashes this year that I like Penny.
I've always been a fan of Penny, so
I like him more now than I did coming in. Even like I saw enough on tape that I'm like, all right, there's something there.
Yeah.
All right, C.J. Anderson could to be Super Bowl MVP.
he's gonna be like he'll get paid and then he'll suck. Like he's
He's
Jay
going to
Ajayi.
He's going to Oakland.
No, he's going to fucking Baltimore.
But by the way, this is just a complete aside thing. But there was somebody posted just a picture of like the Rams. I think it was an article on 538, and I thought it was an offensive lineman running the football for a split
He's
second.
so fucking. He looked like he ate somebody. Like
Meatball. I
He's
don't
so-
ever remember him being that big in Denver.
I don't either.
He was never that big in
He
Denver.
looks like he's like Jamarcus Russell if you wanted to be a running back.
But yeah,
He's gonna be watched and watched heavy. He's 28 years old, so he is younger than Ingram. And really his efficiency has never averaged below 4.0 yards a carry. The one season he wasn't hurt, he went over 1,000 yards. He's shown good goal line work, good viability as a pass catcher. I really do think he could end up in Oakland as a heavier back, or Tampa Bay, or something like that.
It's just never-
I do think he lands someplace where he gets a chance, and he should have had that in Carolina too.
I just never been impressed by him though. I mean, like you talk about a guy who made like just like Damian Williams, he goes into this top 3 offense and then produces.
He's always been hurt.
That too.
Hurt, though.
Yeah.
5, 15, 7, 16, 11 as far as games played. He also was thrown into a committee in Denver. So, I mean, his rush attempts, 7, 179, 152, 110, and then 245 his last season. That season, he had 245 attempts, 4.1 yards a carry, and over 1,000 yards.
And he always plays hard.
Yeah.
I've liked what I've seen out of him.
But again, as we just mentioned,
and the
he's always
efficiency's
banged
always
up.
been there.
He's basically a worse Kerryon Johnson with no pass catching up.
He's an okay pass catcher.
With not as much.
34, 25, 16, 28. I mean, he's been up in the 35 to 40 target range. So, I mean, that's not nothing. I mean, it's not top tier, but it's not nothing. It's good for a mid-tier.
Yeah. So, landing spot will be interesting for him. I think he'll get another shot at least to compete for a starting job.
And I think he'll get over it. I'm not buying into it.
The hype on him is going to be hilarious over the summer.
I'm not buying much into this.
It's going to be fantastic, the hype on him.
And I will.
I get not buying the price.
Yeah.
Now, early on in some dynasty drafts, before the hype really gets out of hand, there's a possibility I might use him as a stash piece to trade later on.
Oh, yeah. If you're startup drafting right now, I think he's an interesting guy to take a look at because he should be outside the top 100 for draft picks. So he's a guy you can grab, start, say, around 9, 10, 11. But, man, come draft time next season, once he lands somewhere in free agency and draft settles out, I expect that hype to get out of control if he's anywhere.
Owning 0 shares.
I will say this to your point about C.J. Anderson, too, Dan. I don't think it's that C.J. Anderson's never been impressive. I think it's that he's always been put in situations to where he's been to be overshadowed.
That's true. I will give you that.
All right. A guy I do not expect back in Baltimore next year, Kenneth Dixon, who actually looked kind of okay in limited work down the stretch, but I'm not sure how much of it was him.
In breaking
he's
news,
going to be the next 1 year flash in the pan starting running back for the Baltimore Ravens.
There's been breaking news.
Oh.
Kenneth Dixon has been suspended for 6 games. Exactly.
I feel like this
it's
is
not
like
true, but it could be true. I have no faith in
with you. I'm not sure. So.
Right.
One mistake. It was big.
You were.
I read the goddamn thing wrong. I'll take blame. I take all my blame. But still, no.
Kenneth Dixon has given nobody any reason to have faith in him. When he's been healthy, he's been just okay. But other than that, like I said earlier, if there's a reason you could miss a game in the NFL, he's missed it for that reason.
All right, don't need to spend too much more time on that. Let's talk about Rex Burkhead.
Oh man,
they like him in they like him in New England.
I think he stays.
I do, and I think
he's still locked into a limited role.
He's just going to cap the upside of Sony Michel
and James White.
I mean, they only save $1 million if they cut him next year, so yeah, he'll be around.
He's going to be there, and he'll be there to be annoying for Sony Michel hunters.
And he'll have like 3 weeks of production, and people will be like, oh, buying the Rex Burkhead.
Rex Goathead.
Yep, pretty much.
Yeah, though if I have an open spot in Dynasty Leagues and he's a throw-in piece, I like him. The Patriots is an offense where I like buying pieces of it for cheap.
If Michelle gets hurt, for an extended time, I completely if I'm the Michelle owner, I'm
there's a point to that. It's kind of like a hot potato because you might get stuck with them when they're no longer useful, viable, or on the Patriots, but you may get some use out of them also. It's like playing Russian roulette with football players.
I mean, the goal with the Patriots, because they're just so hard to know who's actually going to be viable year to year, even game to game sometimes. You generally just want to try to get pieces of the offense for cheap and then flip them when they have value. And then that's about it.
I feel right now like I'm the most confident to say like I know how this backfield will shape up, but because of injury issues with Michelle,
the only person I'm 100% confident in on that offense going forward next year is James White.
Yeah,
because I know
a lot of wide receivers that are going to be gone there.
I know exactly what he is.
Yeah,
I'm pretty confident about the running backs. The wide receivers way less so, but I'm pretty confident about the running backs. I did a lot of data analysis on how Belichick and that team uses running backs, and it was pretty spot on for this year too.
All right, upcoming free agent Jay Ajayi is up next.
Dead or just his knees.
He'll he'll land somewhere with a chance to start, like C.J. Anderson and Mark Ingram, T.J. Yeldon, all these names of guys who could be something. I still don't like them
The free agent running back shuffle.
because there's very limited spots.
I got a prediction for JJ.
Oh,
He's going to be the next
No,
1 year
there it
flash in the
is.
pan starting running back for the Baltimore Ravens.
he's done too much to be that.
To be, yeah, you're probably right. It's probably Oakland.
He'll be a backup somewhere.
Or a team that
Minimize his touches so he can actually be useful.
I could see him land in a spot like
The Jets.
Jets, Buccaneers, teams where they're looking for somebody to come in and compete.
the Lions
I doubt the Lions.
Actually, that's intriguing
because
if you can sell him on not starting and taking kind of a limited deal, especially with his knees being what they are, where he can't handle a full workload, him as a change of pace back between the tackles, outside of Kerryon Johnson, like I was talking about, in a Darrell Bevel offense, that is intriguing.
I mean, from an NFL standpoint, that'd be horrifying, but to face. But I don't know how realistic it is.
It depends on what type of contract demands there are for him and what he thinks his role is, because I think he might be a little too high caliber to end up in that role, but I wouldn't be surprised if it did happen. I see the viability of it.
All right. And then we got kind of continuing down the last four guys who are all guys who either got hurt early or didn't even see a snap because they got hurt in training camp. Third to last I got is Devonta Freeman.
Devonta Freeman, I hope people forget about him, and I hope people forget about him because of the injury, and I hope that he's there kind of in the, ahead of Leonard Fournette range to be taken, because I think Devonta Freeman's going to come back, he's going to play, and he's going to be good again. He's
got no Tevin Coleman. I don't think Ito Smith is going to cut into a lot of his work because Smith is not Coleman.
No, he's not.
And it's as Hopper pointed out too, he's the guy that I want to try to buy on the cheap in Dynasty, and a guy that I'm targeting, and hopefully late, I guess mid third, because I think he's going to drop that far. There's a lot of hype on other running backs around him, and I want to get a piece of that because I think he will. He may not be top form that we saw 4 years ago, but he could be decent enough in a Dirk Cutter offense.
I mean, he went second round this year for a good reason, and if I can get him in the third next year, I'm happy with it.
Yep.
Jerick McKinnon.
Interesting.
Interesting is the right word for this, because first off, what kind of problems do you think Matt Breida is going to create for him? And second off, is there anybody who still thinks he can't produce in this offense? Because Breida and something called the Jeffrey Wilson, or I think that was his name.
Yep, Jeff Wilson.
Even Alfred Morris did some things, even though he was
Morris.
completely washed up.
Every back that they're out there produced. So I think any questions on whether McKinnon can produce should be thrown out the window, but it's going to be what type of problems is what Matt Breida did going to present for his volume. I think that's a two-headed monster. That is the Tevin Coleman, Devonta Freeman's scenario.
Except who's Freeman and who's Coleman? That's
McKinnon's going to be the pass catcher. That I promise you.
This is like this.
Breida's, yeah. It's an even better one, because you think of Coleman as being the pass catcher, but if I remember correctly, Freeman's been the better pass catcher there. But both of them had the ability to do it. So that's why I think it's a good comparison, because both McKinnon and Breida can catch passes, just like both Tevin Coleman and Devonta Freeman could do. It wasn't defined. It's the same thing as Mark Ingram, Alvin Kamara. There's not a defined pass catcher versus runner.
I do think McKinnon is a better pass catcher than Breida.
I do too. I think he's better at it, and you could say the same thing for Kamara and Ingram. Kamara, I think, is a better pass catcher than Ingram, but they're both capable of it. So it's not necessarily going to be what you'd think of in New England, where you have a pass catcher and a between the tackles guy. You just got two running backs that are splitting work.
Yeah, and with that all being said, what is a touch share going to look like? Because this could be 50-50, and exactly. I don't want to own a 50-50 backfield. I think they'll both be overdrafted because of that. I think McKinnon will be drafted at a decent value spot until his hype gets out there. Breida looked good this year. He looked a lot worse his rookie season, in terms of a efficiency standpoint.
He still wasn't bad though.
He had a lot of drops.
He did.
It's going to be real interesting to see how the hype on this takes out, because whichever one is going later, I think I want to take a pass at.
That should be Breida.
You mean a shot at?
Yeah. Yeah.
Pass, shot.
Well, pass makes it sound like you're going to pass on them.
I may pass on both of them because I think they're both going to go too high for where I want to draft them.
I think it's the opposite. I think there's going to be, I think there's going to be people that buy into one of two narratives, and it's either going to be Burita has no value because of McKinnon coming back, or you're going to have the people that didn't think McKinnon could produce anyway, that are even more not sold on him because of the injury and because of what Burita did.
I think most leagues.
In the same draft.
I think most leagues you'll find both of them, and then they'll both go higher than I want to draft them in. That's where I'm angled for that.
I mean, there's also the third narrative, I think, which is I want a running back in Shanahan's offense.
Yeah,
and that is the other narrative. And I want a running back in Shanahan's offense. Where am I willing to take that? For either of them, probably rounds 5 to 7.
Yeah. Once you're through the clear cut guys,
I want some sort of knowledge of what the split's going to be. Right now, we have no clue right now.
Unless you got a crystal ball, you're not going to have that.
Exactly. So I can't say where I want to draft them right now.
I'm just going to close my eyes and swing probably on one of them at some point.
I'll
own at least one.
I'm going to close my eyes and swing on one of them and see where it goes.
Yeah, because the upside is going to be drool worthy. It may not work out, but I'll take the shot.
Jeffrey Wilson.
That late, you're not relying on them necessarily to be a starter. You're taking them around where you're taking your quarterback and maybe your tight end, and you can churn. They don't pan out, you churn them. They do pan out, then you drafted them at the perfect value for a flex player that produces.
I will be very happy if they're my RB4. I'll say that. That's a better thing to say.
All right. Darius Geis, last name I've got.
Give me.
Because this offense is going to go through him, and just because it's just an ACL there. We've talked about this enough. He'll be fine.
Find people that are sleeping on guys.
Well, I'm going after him already.
The injury. I am going after Darius Geis.
I'm trying to trade my 102 for him.
He's better.
People want the 101 people don't want the 101 for him. I'm just shocked by it.
Well, it's because nobody knows what's going to be 101, and I think that's the problem with this draft. Not to segue there. We'll talk about that more later. But I've watched most of the top end talent, and all of the receivers that people are going to say are top draft picks have holes in their game and have defined holes in their game. David Montgomery is the most sure running back that there is, and Josh Jacobs is up there too. But even then, Darius Geis is still more of a sure thing than either of those guys.
Geis would be the surefire 101 in this draft class if he came out this year.
You might have to go 1-on-1. You might have to go 101 plus to get Geis, because the 101 this year isn't going to produce.
No. I saw polls where people want the 101 over Geis. People would.
I misunderstood what you said.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah. People want the 101 or guy, and I'm like, why would you not want to you want running backs that high there because they're more likely to pan out.
I think that's a lot of people that have not watched or heard a lot about this draft class yet. They've heard the hype being there and don't realize that there's holes in a lot of these top. There's paths to them to be successful, but there are holes in a lot of these top guys' games.
I think they're probably looking at 101, thinking about how the last couple 101s have been and valuing it that way.
Well, they see, Barkley from last year. They see a not as wide open in 2017. It was mostly Fournette or Davis.
Most of them hit.
Yeah.
2017, most of them hit, but you weren't guaranteed with the 101 to have something.
The 101 really, Fournette,
Kamara and Ingram were later on in the first round, or not Kamara and Ingram, sorry, Kamara and Hunt were later on in the first round, and they've been your two most productive pieces. Things hit up and down that draft, but it wasn't Leonard Fournette or Corey Davis.
No, but it was Mixon, McCaffrey, Kamara.
CMC and Kamara have been probably the most productive backs.
All of them were rounds. 2 through picks 2 through 7 or 8.
Yeah.
So 101 Barkley last year, that was clear cut. That worked out. 101 this year.
16 was Elliott.
Good luck. You could have one of the first 5 picks and end up with the best producing rookie player out of that draft.
You want a mid to late first this year. You
want something to fall to you to where you don't have to overthink it.
Yes, you want a top end pick if you can pick the right guy out. But again, I would rather trade that top pick for a guy like Darius Geis.
Mm-hmm.
And if the guy that I'm trying to trade with is listening to the show, hit accept. God damn it.
No, and I'm with you 100%. I would trade a 101 for Darius Geis. I would trade the 101 plus a throw in for Darius Geis because I don't
Yeah.
think the 101 this year is that valuable.
Yep, I agree. There's one name we should talk about. We didn't. We briefly mentioned. And that's TJ Yeldon.
We talked about him at the end of last episode.
Did we?
Yes, he was
I don't
number
remember.
26.
Oh, well, I didn't talk about him.
Well, what are your thoughts on TJ Yeldon real quick? We've already
We
talked
did.
about him.
Oh, I didn't
He's going to be
remember.
the next 1 year flash in the pan running back for,
There it
for
is.
the Baltimore Ravens.
All right. I think that does it for tonight's episode.
And we're done.
All right. Thank you so much for tuning in, guys. We'll be back next week when we start talking about the situation with wide receivers in the NFL right now to give you some of our thoughts on where they stand, both in terms of redraft in 2019 and what we can expect from them looking out in terms of dynasty. I'm at Nick Sparks. We've got Christopher Hopper down in St. Louis.
At Hot BFF with TPs. Thank you all for joining us. This is a fun one. I'm sorry I missed last week. That was a misscheduling on my part. We'll try to make that not happen again.
To my right is Dan Thury.
At 3 BFF, it's time for bed.
All right. We are at Beer Fueled FF. Enjoy the episode, guys. We do not know who won the Super Bowl at this time, so we can't help you with that. But enjoy the episode on Monday, and we'll see you guys next week.
But man, that was a good game, and I hope you all remember to get your free wings at Buffalo Wild Wings because it went to overtime.
That's right.
All right. Thanks, guys. We'll catch you
Next
next time
time.
on Beer Fueled Fantasy Football.
See ya.
Peace.
Dan, did you see that play the Rams made in the Super Bowl?
That was fantastic.
Yeah,
Aaron
I
Donald?
can't believe Jared Goff made that throw.
I can't believe Cooper Kupp from his ACL injury made the catch.
I can't believe he came back for this one.
This is amazing. Hunter Henry looked great.
Out of nowhere.